5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Jesus tells us that we are to love the Lord our God with all our soul, with all our strength, with all our heart, and with all of our mind. But what does it mean to love God with all of our mind? How can we do that? What are some habits that might allow us to grow ever more deeply in loving God with all of our mind? That's what we're going to talk about today on Ignition. Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, and we want to set your faith ablaze so that you might live the adventure that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. Before we get into today's topic, we want you to know that we love listener feedback. So if you've got questions about today's episode, or if you have ideas for future episodes, please contact us. The easiest way to do so is by email. The address is ignition@sfcatholic.org. Again, ignition@sfcatholic.org. Renae Kranz is in studio again. Hi, Renae.
Yeah. Hey, Chris.
This is the mystery episode, Renae.
Yeah, Chris didn't tell me what we were going to talk about.
I did not
so
tell
I didn't know
you
until right now.
Until right now. So does it sound familiar to you at all?
I feel like we did this episode already.
So
I'm glad you said that because I'm like, didn't we do
This
this?
sounds familiar. We've talked about something around this, but some of the things I want to share on this episode are things that I shared at the Through God's Love conference way back at the end of last month.
Okay, like 2 weeks ago.
Like 4 weeks ago, as people are listening to this. Renee.
Oh,
It's
sure.
the magic of radio. But
Sorry.
thanks for breaking the illusion.
That was broken a long time ago.
Wow, that's true.
No sound effects yet. It's
too
we're only
early.
a minute and a half
Less
in.
than 2
Come
minutes
on.
So, some of the things that I talked about at the Through God's Love conference at the Convention Center, which was all about what, by the way, Renee?
Our vision for the diocese.
The Lord's vision for the diocese.
Yes.
And one of the things that in our breakouts, we wanted people to think about to grow as a missionary disciple, lifelong Catholic missionary disciple through God's love, is to be attentive to the different areas of what it means to be formed as a disciple. In prayer life, my ability to relate to others, my ability to lead others to the Lord, but also then my knowledge about God,
Right.
which is one way to describe what intellectual formation is all about. And we've talked about intellectual formation today, but for the breakout, I identified 4 key habits that I think are important for people if they want to grow in their knowledge of God. But to begin with, Renae, so and we have talked about this before, but I think it's always good to just sort of reset and remember. What does it mean to love God with all of your mind? What does it mean to love somebody with all of your mind?
In the words of Dr. Chris Bergwald, you cannot love what you don't know.
Okay.
I think those are someone else's words.
Well, I'm sure they are, but I use them a lot.
He uses them a lot.
I do use them a lot.
But they're totally true because if you don't know about God at all, it's very difficult to love him. Although there's probably something stirring somewhere that's like, hey, someone's out there that you're supposed to know about. But the more you know about God, about Jesus, about his plan for your life, about the church, about our faith, the deeper you can grow in your relationship with him. So I think I'm going to get a, ooh, yay.
Well, of course, I'm not going to give you a, but
even if it was wrong, I wasn't going to get an A for that.
Right. Yeah, you can't love what or who you don't know, and you can't grow in love without growing in knowledge about.
Right.
I oftentimes use the example of marriage. The 3 of us, you, me, and Bill, we're all we've all got our spouses. When I was getting to know Jermaine, I started to fall in love with her. The more I fell in love with her, the more I want to know about her. So my growth in knowledge of anybody enlarges my capacity to love them.
So it apparently took Ryan a long time to either get to know me or love me.
You guys will have to work that out on your own. This is not that kind of. This is not that kind of a show. This is not that kind of.
It's not a marriage counseling show.
Dr. Laura, I think, is who you're looking for, or Dr. Phil, maybe. So the more that I know about God, in this case, the more I'm able to love him. But I think also too, the more I'm able to experience his love for me.
Yeah.
So it's a commonplace example in the spiritual life. So you put your mug up here, Renae. So we have 2 coffee, and they're not completely dissimilar. They're close to, but they're not the same size. Mine is a little bit bigger than yours, right? So God always gives himself to me and to you, to each of us, super abundantly, right? So he fills me more than completely. He fills me to overflowing.
Right.
But so he fills me completely, but I have the ability, so a cup can't do this, but you and I have the ability to enlarge our capacity to receive his love.
Yeah.
So I am able what we're talking about, there's all sorts of ways to do this, prayer and other ways, but by me learning more about God, I am growing my capacity to receive him. He fills me he fills me to overflowing. He fills me super abundantly both ways. If we had a teeny tiny thimble here, it holds a lot less than our 2 coffee mugs,
right.
but he still fills it to overflowing.
Right.
The difference, though, of course, is the larger the vessel, the more we can receive, but then the more can spill out as well.
Right. Yeah.
So by me just concretely studying my faith in whatever way, again, we'll talk about some key habits. By me studying my faith, I am able to enlarge my capacity to know and receive know God, love him, and receive his love. So that's one of the really important points for me about why would you study the faith. It's not just to be smarter.
Right.
It's not simply to have more head knowledge. It's learning about somebody so that I'm able to love him more. I'm able to experience his love more, but then I'm also able to more effectively bring others to him.
Yeah, and that's the missionary discipleship.
That's the missionary discipleship.
Because we can talk about missionary discipleship all day and explain to people, well, this is how you do it. You go talk to people, you do this. But if you don't know your faith, you're going to be you're not going to be the best missionary. You can be a better missionary disciple the more you know.
Right.
The more you know.
Right. So if I said, listen, you've got to meet, if I were talking to you and you didn't know this person, you've got to meet Bill Seeley. Tell me about him. Well, he's originally from Montana. He moved here from Polynesia when he was a boy. He's about 5'4", really broad shouldered.
5'4", wow.
And even though he's from Polynesia, he's blonde haired. Oh, he sounds and he speaks all sorts of languages, and he loves the Vikings. And then
out.
And then you meet Bill Seeley, and you see that almost all of those things are not true. What are you going to conclude?
That you don't know
that
anything about Bill
Seeley. Because everything I told you is not everything you told you is wrong.
Wrong.
So if I'm going to, or that's maybe a silly example, maybe a bit less silly, more realistic. Say I'm able to describe some things about Bill accurately. But if my goal is to get you to meet Bill and become friends with Bill yourself, I think it's important that I do know the truth about him, and then I not paint a false picture.
Right.
Is the bottom line.
Right.
Okay. So it's important for not only my own discipleship, but also for my missionary discipleship, that I know something about God, and that it be accurate, and not just an illusion.
Well, and even, I've found this helpful. Hopefully I'm not jumping ahead or anything, but at Mass, the more I know about and understand the Mass, the more I can get out of it.
Yep. So it's not just about knowing God and knowing about God. It's first, but it's also knowing about the things he's given, the teachings he's given us, things like the liturgy, the sacraments, etc. So both the teachings, but also the practices that he has given to us, practices in the sense. Yeah. I think it's important for us. And we see that too. You and I have talked a lot about, the sports analogy, like not getting certain cricket. I think I used cricket not too long ago as an example. I have no idea what's going on in cricket, and therefore I find it boring.
Yeah.
Like it looks like it might be exciting, but when you don't know what's going on, a lot of people get super excited about soccer.
Right.
I don't really understand. I know the basics, but not I don't know the intricacies of soccer well enough to get as excited about really diehard soccer fans.
Same thing with football.
Right.
People who don't know anything about football are like, why are you so interested in watching this? And why do you care so much?
Exactly. So that's kind of the why. I want to focus, though, on 4 key habits for cultivating knowledge about God. The first one is to beg God for certain things around this. One is begging God for the desire to learn more about him.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think in all sorts of ways in the life of discipleship, I know I should do something, and part of me wants to, but there's another part of me that but I don't have time, or I really am not. I'm not that interested. Yeah, I'm a little like this guy's talking on the radio. Okay, maybe a little bit, but there's a big part of me that's like, oh. So right now, if you're listening to this right now, just take a moment. I'm not going to give you time because that's bad radio, but maybe pause it, or when you're done, ask God to nurture your desire to learn more about him.
That is a fantastic point, because a lot of people don't learn more because maybe they aren't big readers. Maybe they feel like they don't have the time, whatever it is. That's huge.
Yeah. So, and God will answer that prayer.
Yeah.
Maybe not instantaneously. Maybe he'll want you to persist. He oftentimes does that. He wants us to keep asking.
You must ask me 100 times.
Right. Not quite the robotic.
I don't know. I don't know why God sounds like a robot right there.
But
Sorry, God.
beg him for the desire to learn more about him in whatever way, and we'll get to the other ways. Second and third together, beg him. This is still part of the begging. Beg him for the gifts of knowledge and understanding. There's a gifts of the Spirit that he wants to give us, knowledge and understanding, and they can apply to all sorts of things around life. But here we're talking specifically about him.
Right.
Ask him for these gifts. Here's the thing. God, we wouldn't be able to learn more about God unless he had already revealed himself to us.
Right.
So he's already, in a sense, opened himself up to us. He's opened the door. Doesn't mean we could knock on the door till the cows come home, but he's opened the door. He's given us the possibility of learning more about him so we can know him in a more personal way. Mm-hmm. The door's open. He wants us to come in, just to have confidence that he's going to give you the gifts of knowledge and understanding.
Right.
The last thing I want to say about this, though, is I said to beg for these gifts, the desire, the knowledge, and understanding. I didn't say to ask for them.
Okay.
I didn't say to pray for them. I said to beg him for them. What's the difference, Renae? Just like the sense of the words. You're a wordsmith by definition. What's the difference between, to you, the feeling of begging or asking?
I would say begging has an urgency and an undertone of, I know I can't do it by myself, or I can't do it without help, or something like that. Ooh.
That is absolutely. I'm not gonna ding ding. You get the correct too.
All right.
Yeah. So I can ask you to do something for me that I could do on my own.
Right.
I could. But begging, to me does have the connotation of I can't do this or get this thing by myself. You've got it. I want it. I can't get it by myself.
Almost like you need to be rescued.
Yes.
From yourself. Like you're drowning and you're begging for help.
Yep.
To me, that's more of the connotation of begging.
Yep. So my invitation to you, Renae, but especially to our listeners, is to beg God for these gifts of an increase in desire, an increase in knowledge, and an increase in understanding. Mm-hmm. Okay? So we'll get on to the second key habit in just a moment, but if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Ignition. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Bergwald, visiting today with Renae Kranz about four key habits for growing in love of God with all of our mind. So we beg God for an increase in desire to know him and know more about him. We beg him for the gifts of knowledge. We beg him for the gifts of understanding. Mm-hmm. Secondly, follow Mary's example.
Ooh, yeah.
So once upon a time in the backwaters village of Nazareth in Galilee, which is the backwoods. That's the word I was looking for. The backwoods of the Holy Land, which is itself the backwoods, as far as the Romans were concerned, of the vast and great Roman Empire. Mm-hmm. There was a young maiden named Mary, and the Archangel Gabriel comes to Mary and tells, well, he relays to her basically an invitation from God himself. God has a plan, and he invites Mary to have a key role. The plan, of course, is he's going to send his son, who will be the Messiah, and also God. And he would like Mary to be the mother of his son in his humanity. What's Mary's response? What's the first thing that Mary says?
How can this be?
She asks a question.
Mm-hmm.
One way, among a couple others that I'll get to, one way to follow Mary's example is to ask the Lord questions. When you are wondering about something, when you don't understand something, and here, be careful. Basically, this comes down to my favorite question, Renae, which is...
Why?
Why? Why do we believe what we believe? Why do we do what we do? Mm-hmm. So Mary asked Gabriel. Now, I want to point out here, earlier in Luke's gospel, Zechariah is approached by Gabriel and told that he's going to be the father of the forerunner of the Messiah. Zechariah also asks a question. What happens to Zechariah after he asks his question?
Made mute.
He's struck dumb and deaf.
Right. Deaf?
He was. That's a biblical nuance that maybe we'll get to, biblical bites. This Advent, we'll see.
Great.
He's struck dumb and deaf. What's the difference between Zechariah and Mary? They both ask questions. Zechariah gets a big old slap on the hand. Mary gets praised.
My guess is Zechariah's comes from doubt, and Mary's does not. Comes from a place of service.
Indeed, yeah. Trust. Zechariah is basically saying he's questioning whether this can really happen or not. Mm-hmm. Mary is asking, how will this happen? Right. Not whether or not, but how are you going to accomplish this?
Right.
She asks a question from trust, but she asks a question. So ask questions. Ask questions. Be not afraid of asking, why do we believe what we believe? Why do we do what we do? Mm-hmm. There are answers to those questions. I've talked about that a lot on Ignition before. But also follow Mary's example in another way. So fast forward after Gabriel's visitation, the Annunciation, 9 months, Jesus is born, the shepherds come, they leave, and Luke tells us what Mary did after everybody goes home. She kept and pondered these things in her heart. Mm-hmm. Keep and ponder these things in your heart. Similarly, 12 years later, Mary and Jesus lose the Messiah. Mary and Joseph, lose the Messiah. They find him in the temple. Son, where have you been? We've been looking for you. But they go back, and Luke tells us again that Mary kept these things in her heart. Mm. She pondered these things in her heart. When we're growing in knowledge of our faith, of God and what he's revealed to us, ponder them. Don't rush through.
Right.
Don't skim the surface. Ponder them. I'm going to come back to this in the fourth point.
What's the definition of
third
ponder?
Point too. What?
What's the definition of ponder?
I don't know.
I don't either, and I don't have my phone or my dictionary.
Another word, ruminate.
Okay.
Consider. So this is I'm gonna go into the third habit here, but follow Mary's example of asking questions, pondering. She wondered at things. Mm-hmm. She was in awe of things. Mm-hmm. All versions of this. My third key habit is what I've started calling the 3 C's: consume content contemplatively. Ooh. Whether you're reading, if you're a reader, whether you love listening to podcasts or watching videos, whether it be a show or a podcast, whatever, video, audio, print, whether you go to events, conferences, retreats, whatever, that's all content. But consume that content contemplatively. Rest in it. Immerse yourself in it. Soak in it. Wallow in it. When you're
wallow. That seems like a sad thing.
No.
Like wallowing in grief.
No. I'm thinking more of like the pig in the mud.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Who's
like
just
roll around in it.
Don't
do the roll dance. Phil's gonna point the camera at me when I do that. Don't do it.
We're gonna keep that clip, I think, to use against you.
I'm sure.
Don't rush through. Now, listen. If you're taking a class or whatever, you're part of a group Bible study. You have to like read it. But if you're doing something on your own or to the degree that you're able, don't rush through content, whether you're reading, listening, watching, experiencing it when it comes to our faith. Again, Mary's example, you want to foster this habit of contemplation where you're considering this thing that you're learning, where you're, again, ruminating on it. You're soaking in it. You're looking at it from all sorts of different perspectives. I am not an art aficionado, but the image that just popped in my head is those people who at least act like they know a lot about art. You know, you go to the
they stand
the
in
museum,
front of it and they tilt their head.
And usually, they're tilted. They're sort of they're
the thinker pose.
They're thinking. They're looking at this, and then they walk. Maybe it's a statue, and they're walking around it, and they get the 360-degree view. Some of them, at least, are actually. They're experiencing something different from those different views. They're soaking. They're staring at. They're gazing at it. I'm going to ask you the difference between staring and gazing in a minute. But they're gazing at this painting, and they're seeing something more. They're not like me. Oh my gosh! Like I can do okay for the first half hour, maybe hour, but more than an hour walking through. That's not. Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, yeah.
It's time for karma rolls.
Exactly. Going because my capacity to experience and appreciate art is still
small.
Not thimble, but it's small.
Yeah.
That much more so with our God and His teachings. Ponder. Mull things over, contemplate what you're teaching. What's the difference between gazing and staring?
Well, I would think that staring, you're maybe just looking at something without thinking about it, and gazing, maybe there's some sort of trying to figure it out. I don't know.
No, trying to figure. I think. Okay. Imagine for a minute I'm your husband. What's the difference between you staring at Ryan and you gazing at Ryan?
Staring at me, he's probably gonna be like, "What?
Right?
Why are you looking at me like that?"
What's the difference?
I don't know. Some sort of love or appreciation.
So I think even though I said
maybe.
you can gaze at a painting, I don't know if you really can, or I don't think you can. That gazing is something you do with someone. Mm-hmm. You can do it with beautiful gazing at the sunset or the sunrise. But I think it's truest, especially you gaze most fully when it's someone. Mm-hmm. Staring at to me is just where there's sort of there's almost a give and take in a gaze.
Right.
Staring is just like I'm communicating something to you right now, or I'm just trying to figure. But it's not an interpersonal communication.
To figure out what is on your face right now.
Right. Gaze at God when or realize whether it's a Bible study or the Catechism or a Scott Hahn book or a Mary Healy Bible study, when you're consuming content, you're gazing at the face of God. Mm. Do that contemplatively, where you're taking it all in. You're not in a rush. So often what I do, my favorite example, to the contrary example, those bugs that skim over the surface of the water, don't be that bug. Follow Jesus' words to St. Peter in Luke chapter 5 and put out into the deep. Go into the deep. He's inviting us into the deeper end of the pool. Mm-hmm. He's inviting, don't be satisfied. And this is going to get into the next point here. So let's try. So consume content contemplatively. Finally, come up with your plan and work it. So this begins of actually ask, Lord, how do you want me to grow in knowledge about you? Ask God. Ask him. Goes back to the first one. Beg him. So have a plan, though. Whatever, at some regular basis. I'd say no less often than monthly, maybe weekly, maybe even daily for you. Be in the habit of consuming content contemplatively to help you grow in your knowledge of the faith. So have a plan that comes from the Lord and work your plan. But don't settle. Don't become complacent. Always be growing. So again, the idea of a pool, maybe you're just starting off, so you're like ankle deep. Well, move towards.
Right. Don't just stand in the ankle deep
forever.
Forever. Yeah.
Go up to the knee. Go up to your thigh. Go up to your chest. Go up to your neck. This is where we start to stall. This is where many of us end up doing a Bible study or reading a book 17 times. Because,
or you get a third of the way through and never finish it.
Yeah, because I'm up to my I'm up to my neck with it. But we're at a certain level where and to go beyond requires, to be honest, letting go and to some degree of trust, because the Lord's beckoning you.
Yeah,
He's inviting you. Trust me. Push off.
Yeah,
I'm here. I'm with you. I want to take you deeper.
Yeah. And the letting go could be letting go of fear of growing closer, or it could be letting go of a material thing that's keeping you from spending the time doing it. I can think of myself on that.
Sure.
For very easily.
So this is going back to the begging God. So Lord, help me to trust you. Take away whatever's blocking me from drawing closer to you. But be intentional. So take baby steps, be patient with yourself, but also be intentional about moving ahead.
Right.
So beg God, follow Mary's example, consume content contemplatively, and create your plan and work it. Renae, we got half a minute left. Any thoughts about any of those, how you might live those out?
No, I think these are all great. I really like the beg God for the desire to learn more. I think that is like super, super key for lots of people. I think 'cause a lot of people think they can't do it or don't want to or whatever.
Exactly.
You might not want to.
Right. But if a part of you does,
yes,
pray that prayer.
Yes. Yeah,
Great.
For sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So love the Lord with all of your mind, and you will grow in your experience of his love for you.
Yes.
Amen.
I like it. Amen.
All right. That will wrap up this episode of Ignition. Again, you can email us ignition@sfcatholic.org with any thoughts, questions, or ideas for future episodes. And until next time, may God bless you.